Thank you, everybody. Buongiorno. Even though we have two Italian startups today joining us, this is an English and international webinar. So thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. We'll be talking, as you can see on the slide, about new technologies, about the future of the cloud, let's say, and especially focusing on MongoDB database and Kubernetes as a tool for startups, for companies in this new age of cloud. So during the next 30 to 45 minutes, the speakers will be sharing their experiences, sharing advice as well, giving concrete examples, and hopefully as well providing useful input for everybody that's listening today. If you have questions, obviously there's a chat. Let me just switch slides. Here we go. There's a chat in the GoToWebinar tool. Don't hesitate to use it for any questions or comments. I'd gladly use it during the conversation and during the debate. And also, we'll spend a few minutes at the end to answer any questions anyway. Before we start, actually, talking about questions, I do have one for everybody that has connected so far. If you could answer in the chat, it'll be a very easy question. I just wanted to know for you guys, what is the cloud in 3 words? So if you could just type in 3 words, what does the cloud mean for you in the chat, that'd be great, and I can probably use that during the conversation. Otherwise, follow us on Twitter. Obviously, the recording will be sent after today's session, and there's an email, dedicated email, event@ovhcloud.com, that we can use for any questions as well after the event. My name is Jonathan Clark, and I'm going to start by introducing myself. I'm the startup program leader for Southern Europe, so that means Italy, Spain, and Portugal mainly. But I'm exactly part of this startup program within a company called OVHcloud. And I'd like always to start a little bit with OVHcloud just to remind anybody who doesn't know who we are. So we're a startup, well, we used to be a startup, started 20 years ago, one of the first examples of a French unicorn, and you have a few data KPIs, let's say, of what we do today all over the world. So 1.6 million customers over 140 countries, a lot of servers that we sell, a lot of hostings, website hostings, and 31 data centers, just to share but a few examples of who is OVHcloud. Another good characteristic of OVHcloud is why I use this map, is that we're the leading European player in a market that's dominated more by American and Chinese players. We're the sort of the leading European alternative. So that's also very interesting, especially when it comes to data and when it's hosted. I recommend anybody to go and check out Gaia X, GDPR, obviously you've probably heard of GDPR, and the American Cloud Act. A very interesting act, and I do recommend you check it out because it does have implications on your data and the data of your customers as well. As I said, I'm the startup program leader, and today we're kind of organizing this webinar around the startup program. What is the startup program? We're three things basically. We're a 1-year program. You can join wherever you want, but you stay for a year. 2 levels where we help startups and scale-ups. So scale-ups are more mature startups, let's say, in our definition. And we have 3 pillars of support. We give technology benefits with credits and hours of specific support, visibility with events, workshops, use cases together with the startups, and also business benefits with a whole ecosystem of partners and startups and clients as well, that we can help benefit the startups. So that's exactly what I was saying. There's a marketplace. We have a partner program to link up with partners and customers of OVHcloud. We have accelerators, incubators in our ecosystem. So these are also opportunities for Italian startups, but also startups all over the world. I have got colleagues across the world. And to finish on this, this is a sort of a sample of the European ecosystem that we have. So you'll see here in Italy, for example, we've partnered with Le Village, with L Venture, with French Tech Milan, and we're also starting collaborations with Polyhub so the Politecnica di Milano and Bocconi, for example. So these are all also part of our ecosystem. Having said that, also part of our ecosystem, and which is where we end the introduction and we actually start getting to know who's going to speak with us today, the startups are an important part of the ecosystem. So Eduardo and Valerio are both startups, and they're also part of the ecosystem. Also in the ecosystem are OVHcloud colleagues. So Matthias was supposed to join us today. An unexpected event happened, so hopefully he'll join us during the call, during the webinar. But yeah, so we'll just continue. It might be a little shorter. Unfortunately, Matthias is probably not going to make it today. But we still have Valerio and Eduardo, thankfully. And so I'm going to start, I'm going to shut up for a few seconds and let you guys introduce yourselves, introduce your experience. So Valerio, if I may ask you to start first,
okay.
You just, tell us who you are, tell us about contents, and also if I may add a little fancy question, if you could choose where you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Okay, nice. Okay, hi, I'm Valerio, CTO of contents.com, and I am a startup enthusiast. I'm happy to participate this webinar because every startup I launched in the past or attended the launch before the business plan and other stuff always started with a VPS on OVH. So OVH is the base for launching every startup in in my life. So I'm very happy to be here. Contents.com is all-in-one single application platform from trend prediction, content generation, analysis of user behavior, website performance monitoring, and detection of the website position in search engines, and a lot of activities that every e-commerce or other startup need every day. Contents is for e-commerce publishers and content creators, giving them the best original content in all languages, and and we are also using AI and machine learning to generate content and trend prediction. About the last question, the place I would be now in this moment, I don't know why, but I really have this link with Venice. I really love Venice, so now if I imagine now in Venice, it's not the best time for Venice because summer is really hot, really hot. Is it a city in the sea, but it's really hot. Sometimes there is no wind. I don't know why. It's not the best for summer. Better in spring or in yes, but in Venice.
There's
yes.
no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong answers to that question. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Valerio. Eduardo, if you could take your turn.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Eduardo. I'm the CTO of FlowPay, and really I'd like to thank OVH for inviting me to this webinar. And I'll be brief. At FlowPay, we automate and simplify the process for paying and getting paid along with an electronic invoice. So in Italy, for instance, we have mandatory electronic invoicing, and from there, we automatically create a payment request or a future dated payment that is schedulable directly from your bank to the customer or to the other party's bank. So we are a very new startup. We actually benefited a lot from the ability of being able to instantiate our cloud onto OVH. So thank you again. And yeah, a place that I'd like to be, probably at the beach, given the temperatures that we have in Florence. It'd be quite nice.
All right, thank you very much, Eduardo. So let's get started. Thank you for your introductions. I think now is time has come. Sorry, to go into the details of our discussion, of our debate. I arbitrarily decided, actually, no, wait, let me just check what people have written. I've seen there's been answers in the chat. So thanks again, guys. So Enyo, so in terms of 3 words that define the cloud for the public, the audience, so Enyo said it's scalable, elastic, and secure. Sounds about right. And Emmanuel also said flexible, scalable as well. So I guess, yeah, that's very true. And I think it's also something we'll see, I guess, with the first topic of today, which is Kubernetes. Arbitrarily chose Kubernetes to start off, but when we think about, of course, containers compared to the usual way of working, but also what some people call cloud native applications, it's quite interesting to get into the details of let's say the pros and cons of using microservices, using serverless functions, all those in sort of the new virtualized way of working. So my first question will be a very general question, actually, for Valerio and Eduardo. Generally speaking, what are the challenges that would make DevOps decide to move to cloud native applications? So maybe Eduardo, if you could kick us off, according to you, and generally speaking, what challenges do you see, and go straight to cloud native applications?
Yeah, in general, the cloud native approach allows you to basically forget about the physical layer of stuff. So, and this is a problem that we often have. So you end up spending most of your time not actually developing your application, but actually staying up to date with the latest security updates, or maybe a server goes down, or maybe something won't work in your either infrastructure or in your provisioning pipeline. And therefore moving to a completely cloud native solution allows you to forget about all the OS and the management of the apparatus that you need for the company to operate. And that ends up being a cost. In general, you probably need at least a couple of people that do that and do not do the work that your company is supposed to do. And especially for a smaller startup, having 1 or 2 people more in the team is quite the cost. So the cloud native approach allows you to basically even structure your application around the fact that it will never go down, and you'll never have to maintain it on a lower level, let's say.
So also in terms of adding a few keywords, I guess also cost management, I guess, would be another maybe.
Yeah, cost management is a thing. Even though cloud seems, and this is an honest advice, even though the bill might seem a bit higher in the beginning, when you factor in that you do not have to have specific people in your company, or maybe even if you have them, they can do more higher level work. It really adds up to a saving by the end of the day.
Valerio, anything to add, or do you agree or disagree?
Yes. The cost, the main problem about cost is to explain to the board or to other founder that is not really high cost, because you save money in hiring more people, or do a lot of maintenance stuff, or if you have problems, obviously if your server go down for some problems, this is you lose money in this way. So have an high stable system infrastructure in a cloud architecture is better for the company. And there are some costs, but if you compare with the cost with team and be available 24 hours and any kind of these operations, I think is better. And the other difficult about the cloud now is there are a lot of services. So which is the best service for this feature in this moment? Now it's very difficult to find what is the best service now, because there are a lot of choices, a lot of new services offered by cloud services. So for this, there are now people that are very skilled to find the best cloud services for your product. So
I guess good thing we're doing this webinar as well today, focusing on like the advantages or benefits of using two specific services amongst the many services that you're right to point out there are quite a few. So focusing on Kubernetes, Eduardo, could you share why your company decided to bet on Kubernetes?
Yeah, so Kubernetes is, I guess maybe we do some introduction to what it is. It's basically an abstraction layer on top a number of servers that each server ends up being like a host for containers, and containers are an abstraction on top of the Linux kernel that basically allows you to have separated applications with separated environments. Although you're not actually virtualizing anything, you're actually running on the same hardware on the same machine. And Kubernetes allows you to provision a number of containers in a pool of resources without having to worry about anything basically that happens down below. The main advantage we found is basically that you do not have to assume anything about the hardware or anything about the networking. You just launch your pods, which are the containers of containers that Kubernetes uses. You just launch your pod in a cluster, and everything is taken care for by the orchestrator, so by Kubernetes. And for us, given that we have a number of microservices, so a number of small applications that do one thing and one thing only, and we need them to be able to communicate seamlessly between each other and to scale horizontally. So maybe you might want to have a new microservice pop up if the previous ones are full. Not having to worry about anything and just saying, okay, create me a new pod, create me a new thing, and there's nothing else to it, really simplifies the work from our point of view. And in general, the community is also very large, very useful. There are a lot of resources online for you to be able to do basically whatever you want. So in 2 words, you do not have to worry about anything. Even though we are already on a cloud provider generally, and you do not have to worry about the hardware itself, Kubernetes also eliminates the need to worry about virtual machines and virtual private servers. Everything is removed from you. You only interact with the application, which is something that also from a developer point of view is much closer to how they think, and therefore allows even a developer to kind of debug maybe an architectural problem in a meaningful way.
Is that, very quickly, a very basic question, is that what I've read as self-healing, like a self-healing feature that Kubernetes has?
Yes and no. Kubernetes has a number of tools and systems in place that allow the cluster to, for instance, if there's a pod which fails, crashes, you can set it, for instance, a number of minimum replicas of a pod that you need to have, and the system automatically brings it back up for you. Or if you maybe have a scheduled update and the new version for some reason doesn't interact well with the rest of the cluster, Kubernetes will do what's called a rolling update. So it will, if we have 3 pods, update 1, check if it works, and then update the other 2 depending on the settings that you use. Therefore, it kind of balances itself out no matter what happens. Of course, if there's a system-wide failure, there's nothing you can do. But in general, it removes the necessity of constant monitoring of the deployment of everything, let's say. And you just set up rules and you will follow them to its best effort, basically.
Thanks, Eduardo. Valerio, I know from our discussions that you started with Kubernetes and then decided to stop. I was wondering, like, give us maybe the opposite view. What, in your experience, how did it go about?
Yes. And in contents.com, we have 3 types of applications. One are WordPress based, because they are media, like news media portal, so with a lot of cached pages and not a lot of query on database, but a lot of static content. Another type of application is Laravel, so PHP with MySQL. And the third one is in Python for machine learning and natural language generation project. We try to use Kubernetes for WordPress application, but we found that there are a lot of costs and a lot of difficulties to us to use this infrastructure for this kind of project. And next, we decided to move to a classic with Varnish that expose cached page, in the back end the WordPress, and Redis for cached queries. And with this, we have a really low budget with a million of users every day read our news. So about cost now is about cost, because the Varnish infrastructure with LAMP and Redis is really a low budget than the Kubernetes one. And for Laravel project now, the problem that is the contents.com doesn't have a lot of users. It's a B2B, and so with small business, and we don't have, so we don't need a flexible environment, so we don't have peak of traffic or any kind of this. So we use a classic VPS with Docker, okay, with Jenkins and pipeline for continuous integration. And also with this infrastructure, it's okay for us, also for developers, and also because we don't have a big team for now, and also our CIS have to look at a lot of applications, of type of application. For the third type of application that in Python, so for machine learning and language generation, here the problem is that we have a really big container, because we have big Python modules like Spacey or language models that a lot of gigabytes. So we are talking about container of about 100 gigabytes. So every deploy is really slow, and we don't find a solution with Kubernetes. So for now, we decided to not explore, but only to start to explore this for Laravel project in PHP, for the reason I've talked about.
So a key lesson, I guess, is that not every project has to have Kubernetes or Docker. You don't have to just go straight for that, jump into it. You got to think first, right?
Yes, we think that at this step it's not needed for us. I think probably in future with more users, I think yes, probably yes. But now for the situation we have now, no, we don't.
And the other obstacle I saw is maybe the skill set. Maybe there, Eduardo, as well. You could jump in, like in terms of the jump. Is it a big jump to start using?
Yeah, it's a very different way of thinking about application deployment and management. You basically have to structure your whole process around it, and therefore, if you already had either the skills or the process to manage your project in another way, it's a cost to move to Kubernetes, because it forces you, and this is a design choice, it forces you to operate how it wants you to operate, which for a security and reliability standpoint is a good choice design-wise, but also if you do not have either the time or the budget to invest to move to this way of managing your application, it's kind of grinding. You have to, there are a number of concepts which are exclusive to Kubernetes. There are, or let's say, to this orchestration platform. And therefore, we started by structuring our project around it from the ground up. Therefore, it came natural. But also the point that Valerie made about moving to a new thing, just out of the blue, just because it's popular in the moment. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. You have to evaluate what for you makes sense and move forward with it.
Okay, thanks. At this stage, I wanted to move on to Mongo, but quickly share that we do have at OVHcloud this managed Kubernetes service now to help basically take away a lot of the headaches, I guess, of managing the infrastructure behind the Kubernetes. It helps, I guess, monitor everything that's going on and everything that's linked to bugs and security patches. That's actually something I wanted to, just to finish on Kubernetes, because I imagine there's some limitations. We talked about the skill set, but I also heard a lot about the security aspect of Kubernetes. I don't know if Eduardo or Valerio, you have any input on that aspect.
Okay, I was muted. In general, Kubernetes doesn't really provide any kind of specific like security thing by itself. It's just a platform that manages through a few of the services that you can see on screen, that basically manages the whole stack directly. The problem with it is that if you do not configure it correctly, someone with your credentials can, in one stroke of a button, delete everything forever from your infrastructure. So the management of the access rules is quite important, and also there are design considerations to make around having more than one cluster, because let's say the temptation there is to have one giant unified cluster and separate logically all your services within it, just because it's an easier task from a management standpoint to have only one access point and that's it.
Yeah.
But that, and it can work, but that can lead to problems, as you said, regarding security, because if you manage to get a hold of the token that you use to connect either through your command line to CTL, okay, it can be a problem. So segmenting and structuring your application is a concern with Kubernetes as much as other systems.
Yeah. Okay. Was this also a concern for you, Valerio, or not so much?
No, I think it's a good service for who want to start with Kubernetes. I already tried this kind of service in another cloud service, and it's really useful if you don't know really well the application, and yeah, so I think it's good service if you want to start to learn about something about
the idea behind it is definitely to make it easier for customers at OVHcloud. The company manages the service, and you can focus, you as a startup, as a company, can focus then on more on, like the slide says, your application, your core business. It takes, I hope, some of the headaches away. And it's the same, actually. That's perfect. I'm going to skip over to MongoDB now, second topic of today's webinar, and that's exactly what the other part is interesting, is that also for MongoDB, you might not know, you might not be an expert in relational, non-relational databases. Which one do I start with? How do I manage it from the back-end point of view? So at OVHcloud, we also have this NoSQL database platform managed by us. Obviously, MongoDB, this is a new partnership we've done with Mongo. Just started this month. We have a beta out, and so it's perfect for us to start providing more managed databases. There'll be more coming up, but Mongo is one of the leaders, or the leader in the market. So that's been super good for us to jump in and offer our customers. These are the main capabilities of the database as a service portfolio. So again, we manage more of the stuff behind the scenes, and it allows you to focus on your application. In terms of security, in terms of updates, in terms of bugs. I was going to actually ask you, Eduardo, why would you start using? Why would you start? Maybe also a little introduction on databases, which you did perfectly for Kubernetes. And why would you start using MongoDB? Do you have a specific use case to share?
Yeah, we basically. So the introduction should be around MongoDB or in general, like databases.
Maybe yeah, like a sentence on databases. You probably explain it much better than I can. And then
so the main difference between a NoSQL and a SQL database is the relationship tables that you can manage to have within the SQL you will never have in a NoSQL database, and also the query language, which is the SQL, as the word NoSQL implies. You do not query a NoSQL database with SQL. The main reason why the market is moving towards NoSQL databases is, and there are actually a couple, they tend to be faster because they are much more unstructured and simpler in their data, in the data structures that they memorize, and therefore they tend to be faster both in read and writes. And also the ability to kind of forget about the data, the kinds of data that you're putting in, like MongoDB generally is quite useful, at least for us, because we memorize information regarding invoices, and there are a number of fields that change per single invoice. So some might have this field, some might have that field, some might be in a French format, some might be in an Italian format. And with a SQL database, if you want to have the data saved not as a file, but you want to actually be able to read the data from the database, you'd have to structure your tables in a very careful manner. While with MongoDB, you basically can just push the data in and it will read it and store it no matter what, and this simplifies our work quite a bit. Also, the way MongoDB works is much, let's say, much like Kubernetes, is much closer to maybe how a developer thinks and operates.
Okay.
The query language is, let's say, JavaScript, something, I mean, in that direction, and therefore it's easier. You do not have to have a very specific knowledge about databases to know how to maybe filter query or the results with a MongoDB if compared to, let's say, PostgreSQL or in general a SQL database. So there are concerns regarding speed, speed both in reads and writes, data types, and the logic by which these platforms are developed.
Yeah, I guess this slide is actually also, in terms of the billing as well, important, keeping track of costs of your database, I guess also. Valeria, I remember also in the discussions we had before, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying there were actually two schools of thoughts. Those developers who liked relational and those who liked non-relational. Why would you say that developers prefer the relational databases?
I don't know why developers prefer relational database. Probably because they learned in the university. There is a lot of courses really focused on SQL and not a lot in NoSQL. And next, I think because developers are structured. So, okay, there are stable, relationship, indexes, you have to do the joins, and in MongoDB, you have more, it's more flexible. So, for example, we are using MongoDB for scraping data because we scrape a lot of sources, different sources. In our case, are social media. So we aggregate Facebook post, Twitter, YouTube video in one collection. So we have different attributes and different kind of data. And so with the flexible of MongoDB or other NoSQL database, we can aggregate all this data in one collection and do all the stuff we needed to analysis, trend prediction, and this kind of variation. And also MongoDB is really fast in the updates.
Okay.
So our scrapers are faster and really a lot of updates. And also we can use you can create really complex indexes. So also when you're retrieving data, it's really fast. And the other things that we really like of MongoDB is also that we have a full text search that is really optimized. It's not like Elasticsearch or another kind of service more focused on this, but you have full text search ready to use that can be useful for starting your application.
And what is your personal experience with do you manage your own databases? I've used managed databases in your personal experience.
No, in my personal experience, I tried managed database, and I had a good experience. The only difficulty is to find the best solution with cost, because if you have a lot of storage, a lot of data like scraping, managed so a cloud service is not good because they are based on traffic, on this kind, and if you have a lot of storage, it's not really, they are really the costs are really high. But if you are doing, for example, a little application or a little jobs, for example, in the past I did this application that was deployed in Kubernetes, that there is a scheduler or job. Okay, so every day it deploy the container, do the stuff that have to do, and next destroy the container, save the data in this little MongoDB database, and the costs were really low because MongoDB was in free tier, so not paying for it. The application was deployed for 5-10 minutes and then destroyed, so the cost really was really low. So in the way microservices, if you think with microservices, it can be really a good for low budget feature. It's
okay.
Really,
do you agree with that, Eduardo? I was seeing you.
Basically, if you're running on a budget and you do not want to like lose time, also going with either free tiers or in general the lowest tier of many services like OVH also allows you to create actually pretty powerful things with not that much of a without too much work, basically too much hassle, and allows you to know that the thing will run, because using managed services, you probably pay more, but you have the certainty that the thing will run as most reliable as possible, let's say.
I like that what you said, because it also links to what some members of the public were saying. It's so cost efficient, scalable, like flexible as well. I think is if you want to use it in the example of Valerio of applications, or if you'd rather use it on something else, you can choose. There's a lot of choices. You got to choose the right one, but at the end of the day, at least you can get rid of a lot of headaches. And I guess this slide as well, this last slide, shares that. So eventually we'll have a lot of databases as a service proposed within the portfolio of OVHcloud. Obviously, it's all based on our infrastructure, our hardware, our bare metal hardware, as well as our virtualization layers. And hopefully it will help whatever the scenario, whatever use case that you might encounter, it should help you. Just to finish on that, one last question. What would be the most important feature or features for you of a managed database, Valerio? What would be if you had to choose one or two key features, what's the most important for you?
Oh yes, for example, if you want to upgrade, you want more RAM, you want more storage, you want to decrease because you choose a really high level infrastructure for the database. These also you can do snapshot, create another database the same with in minutes. This it's really powerful for developers because
The
it creates stage ambient to test new features. So this is really powerful for development.
Thanks. Eduardo as well, if you.
Yeah, in general, automatic scalability is paramount, I think, both up and down. So up if your application is under stress, down to save on costs, of course. And that also allows you to basically never worry about anything again, as long as you trust that the scaling works nicely. And yeah, also I basically agree with everything that Valerio said. The ability to easily snapshot or even import from another source completely a database is paramount, because it allows you to be very flexible with your development and your infrastructure, and allows you, even if you want to try a new thing, or I don't know, migrate to another zone, if you need to have geographical redundancy, the ability to snapshot, import, and export the whole structure of the managed database is fundamental.
Cool, thank you. And with that, I'd like to skip to the move on to the questions and answers phase. So we're entering the last final stretch of this webinar. I think we're right on time. So thanks again for sharing your experience, guys. I'd like to let 5 minutes to the audience to share their questions in the chat, if you have any. That way I can share it to Eduardo and Valerio, get their answers. Anything in particular that that you're curious to know about in terms of their experience, for example. So I'll let you maybe 1 minute to the audience to write something down. While we're waiting, I did have one kind of general question. It's more of like a personal life question. Like if you were to start kind of all over again, let's say you're 18, 19, and you want to start technologically speaking, what would you recommend? What would be the one thing that you'd recommend, like maybe a hack, a book, a training that you did, technology? Like if you could, or maybe to put it other ways, talking to yourself when you're 18, like you'd say, do this now. This will save you a lot of time in future. This will be great.
You know, I'm not that far from but try and build a web application from scratch on a cloud provider. I think I'm a very learn by doing guy. So I think the best thing that I should have done would have been, and it took me a while to. Okay, don't try and build everything from scratch. Just see what tools are there and try to build a thing working from front end to networking, basically with the tools that are given to you from a cloud provider. And this allows you to understand how to navigate like the modern way that applications are built. So that'd be a suggestion that I have. With the free tiers of most cloud providers, you can do basically everything if it's just a test that you're doing for yourself. So go and do it.
Sounds good. And Valerio?
I think if the question is if I return 18, right?
Yeah, or if you spoke to yourself at 18, yes. What would you highly recommend? A book, a training, a tech?
Okay, yes. To try.
Okay.
Nice. There are a lot of blogs and a lot Twitter, Reddit. You can find the new technologies. When you read something about new, try these new technologies. Also the trending project on GitHub, and also because every year there are new technology disruptive with the past, and and every application started always with PHP, Apache Nginx, MySQL. So break the rules and use microservices, Node.js, no MongoDB, because it's also funnier for me. Then this stuff is boring. There are a lot of documentation, but the community is really helpful. So if you have problem, you can ask on Stack Overflow. So try new technologies, because probably you have to put some time, more time than use, for example, a PHP page. But the result is better, and also you can increase your skills as developer, because new languages, new technologies push the developers to write better code. If you use PHP, sometimes you okay, this is faster, I can do in this way a lot of code, and and so new frameworks help developers to write better code, and it's better for the team and for companies.
Actually, I'm going to read one last question, and then we'll call it a day. And it's actually exactly about that, trying and being hands-on. I mean, it's directed to you, Eduardo, but if Valerio, if you have also a specific answer, don't hesitate. So Eduardo, you seem, so this is a question from actually Emanuele. You seem to have learned a lot by doing hands-on Kubernetes. Was it easy? And what helped you on the way? Is there something that helped you on the way?
One thing, so no, yes, I've learned a lot by doing it. That it wasn't easy. You break stuff, you forget about things that the second time you do are quite obvious. So the first time around you make a lot of mistakes, and it's normal, I think. And how to learn? I think and this might sound cheesy, but the ability to be able to formulate a good question to write on a search engine is actually, I think that it's dearly missed, I think. Online, as Valerio also said, there are a number of forums, there are a number of resources that you can get for free. Also, YouTube has a lot of very nice tutorials, especially for Kubernetes, but the ability to go there and find them and not be deterred by the fact that you maybe already looked at 20 different solutions. I think it's the most important thing. I do not have a specific thing that I, let's say, learned from. Maybe only Stack Overflow. I know it's kind of a joke in the developer community, but Stack Overflow is a really helpful, actually, things. Forum. If you never asked a question on Stack Overflow, you can also ask questions on Stack Overflow. Many people just look at all questions, but do ask, and people will answer. Because none of what you are doing, you are the first one. So, I mean, it's very rare to be the first one doing something. So, and also experiencing a problem. 99.9% of the problems have already been solved by someone out there. Maybe you need to put the time and effort to also find the solution, which might be consuming. But yeah, just do things, wait for them to break, and see why they broke.
Thank you. Cool. All right, we're gonna have to call it a day, unfortunately. So there are other questions. If we haven't answered your question now live, we'll answer them by email, rest assured. We have them written down. So I just wanted to say grazie mille, thank you to all the attendees who signed up and attended today. I hope it was of value. Especially thank you to Eduardo and Valerio for making it. So yeah, I'm going to say goodbye now, but Eduardo, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Valerio.
You're welcome.
See you all hopefully at the next virtual event or workshop. If you have any questions, there's our contact and there's our website, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Ciao.